Hello, magnificent eardrums. It's Thursday, 19th of March 2020, and we do warmly welcome you to the Voice in the World Late Night Noisecast, Episode 4. Once again doing what we can and what we must to ensure feasts of reason, flows of soul, and stolen moments of cool in the time of Corona. On the show tonight, we're bringing adventures in sound from the unparalleled tenor saxophonist and arranger for Jools Holland's Rhythm and Blues Orchestra, Mr. Phil Veacock. From saxophonist and Ivor Novello award-winning composer Charlotte Harding. And from mesmerizing six-string sensation, hailed by Strings Classical Music magazine as the new champion of classical guitar, Laura Snowden. My old rhythm and blues band there with the legendary Pete Cook, Nick Payne, Dave Prizeman, Johnny Day, Steve Rushton, and myself with a little Mardi Gras in New Orleans. I begin tonight's Saxorific episode with continuing gratitude for all of your wonderful feedback and interactions across the interweb, emails, the bookface, and such. It really does make a tremendous difference when I come to put each show together. Looking forward more and more to engaging with you all, and especially to hearing how much you're enjoying the artists and contributors that I've been featuring from my super circle. It's day 6 here of initially comparative and subsequently fully committed isolation. And it can feel more like voicing the bunker than voicing the world, so long may we continue to scream palaces of support for each other into the digital void, therefore. First up in the featured music department this evening, as promised rather excitedly, Phil Veacock and his band, the Deptford Rivieras. The Corona moment is not the first time I've been confined to home for the duration. 3 sets of surgeries and health incidents have seen me shut down for months upon months in times gone by, and though he only really knows about one of them, Phil Veacock has actually been there for me as I emerged from each. The first time, while still at school in South Wales, I celebrated recovery by attending a Jools Holland Rhythm and Blues Orchestra gig at St David's Hall in Cardiff, with my mother, procuring last-minute tickets that placed us practically on Phil's head. Later, as a music student at Leeds, I celebrated recovery by attending a concert and backstage party with Jools' orchestra at York, a glorious night in which I attempted to impress upon Phil the substantive meaning of that which he had lifelong impressed upon me. The third and most meaningful time was after a long period of recovery from enforced wheelchair use. I put out a message at the end of the misery, offering my services to London as a nose flautist, shillelagh composer, tuned linoleum roller, or whatever was required to get me back on my metaphorical and literal feet. Phil was the very first responder, offering me a singing gig with the band you are about to hear that very weekend. With delight and long-standing gratitude then, Phil Veacock and the Deptford Rivieras, this is Spycatcher. Spycatcher there, composed by the band's Hammond organ and bass pedalist Gary Baldwin, with Alan Savage playing drums, Phil arranging and on tenor sax, and the brass section filled out by the Right Royal Rippingly Raucous Riviera horns, in all their alliterative glory. That sound is the sound of moving to London for me, southeast London to be precise, with all the hope that direct access to the Jubilee line and significantly cheaper travel cards, as I recall, could bring. Thank you for the noise, Phil, and as ever, folks, links below to click through at the end of the show and make your enjoyment count. So, what's going on? Well, at this stage in last week's proceedings, I was merrily discussing my cautious freedom of movement around several spots of cultural repute. Tonight, as already mentioned, movement has been largely in-house, bar one or two efforts to approach hitherto food houses of civility with the protective mindset of Will Smith in that movie, I Am Legend. In the years ahead, I am sure much will be made in the field of cunning wordplay of our present fascination with what is essentially branded, recycled paper pulp. So I need not elaborate too much here, other than to highlight that a quick Google of how toilet paper is produced reveals an entire field of unintentionally romantic literature on the subject. Beds of highly engineered rolls absorb in their softness, their transparent gauziness, glazing, unglazing, creeping, with lint-free desirability. No wonder they're sold out. From the comedic romance of old pulp, then, back to sincerity. And a very special friend of mine up next for you from the Super Circle. Saxophonist, multi-instrumentalist, vocalist, and Ivor Novello award-winning composer Charlotte Harding. There are those you meet in the creative arts who, with merely a first impression, let you know that they are the true world beaters. They're the ones with talent and modesty in equal abundance. They're the ones who artistically catch you when you fall. They are the ultimate collaborators in all the noise that's fit to ring. Here then, with her track, In Dust, a true world beater. With percussion setup from Rebecca McCrystal, composition and soprano sax by the one, the only, Charlotte Harding. Charlotte Harding and Rebecca McCrystal there, with In Dust. Once again, folks, links below. Make it count. In Monday's episode, I spoke, from my perspective as a speechwriter, of the spirit of partnership, rather than confrontation, that must imbue all communications between us during this process of endurance and enlightenment. The philosopher Karl Popper had it that the truth of hypotheses could only be tested by attempts to falsify them, and, in the case of his exile to New Zealand, found therein that the conditions of an open society, a liberal democracy, if you will, free to question its authorities, would enable the greatest chance of discovering how human liberty could best hold its enemies at bay. Here, in the UK, we operate within the systemic sphere of liberal democracy, and should thereby be free to challenge and discover together in protective partnership how best to hold this viral enemy at bay. With that communicative freedom comes fortune, a serendipitous gift to, as the late Clive James would have it, either make the best sense we can of what we see and hear, or else do less than nothing. We each have an opportunity here to make the best sense count for something now, to pay attention to multiple verified sources of information, to share only material from verifiable sources, to use our voices, as W. H. Auden would have it, to undo the folded lies, to look at those nations ahead of us in the fight and heed their people's advice and warnings. And, finally, in times of such adversity and uncertainty, to protect each other in the social media hysterosphere, with compassion and support for the melee of survivalist efforts we are all bringing into being. From the social media hysterosphere to skies of unending musical light, now then, closing out tonight's Noisecast with classical guitarist and composer Laura Snowden, commissioned to write a piece inspired by Bach for the BGS Records album Bachianas. Her Light Perpetuum for guitar quartet and saxophone is performed here by saxophonist Amy Green and the VIDA Guitar Quartet. I first met Laura at the National Gallery with her alternative folk group Ter Erlas. Having gone on to see her at multiple venues over the years, including an outstanding Wigmore Hall performance, and seen multiple videos of her making glorious noise all around the world, I can vouch for the fact that, once Corona is over and we're all back in the air, you may consider yourselves tremendously privileged to be in the presence of her performances. In the meantime, here's Light Perpetuum. I'm Michael L. Roberts. Links below. Make your enjoyment count, and see you Monday. Good luck, and ever onward to you all.
Bye.